On today's Two on Your Side Town Hall, prescribing pot just got a lot easier here in New York State. The folks at a local neurologic institute will explain to us what has changed with the state law and the impact on patients. Plus, the pandemic led to a lot of older workers retiring early. But AARP told Two on Your Side that it's actually the perfect time for seniors to get back into the job market. And as donations to Oshai Children's Hospital pile up from Kansas City fans, we'll talk with the member of Chiefs Kingdom who started this wave of generosity. Thanks for being here at 5:30. Tonight we're going to get to those stories, but first on the town hall, the Buffalo Bills looking forward as a lot of us still have questions about that loss this past weekend in Kansas City. Today we heard from Bills general manager Brandon Beane. He did his annual end of season news conference and he talked about everything from the draft to free agency, the salary cap, the future of specific players. But he also issued an apology to you, Bills Mafia, and he was pretty candid about what he thinks of the NFL's overtime rules. Our sports director, Adam Benigni, joins us now. And Adam, we're going to talk about OT in just a minute because I thought it was really interesting what Beane had to say about that today when you questioned him. But first, let's talk about this apology. I mean, he said he hasn't been able to sleep very much, and he acknowledged kind of the pain that so many people are feeling through the fan base.
Yeah, I certainly did, along with the pain inside of the building, Michael. Brandon Beane says he still hasn't watched the tape, in fact, of Sunday night's loss, that it is, in fact, too painful. And along those lines, as you said, he thanked and apologized to Bills fans for not doing enough to lock down and win that game. I did ask him for his take on what went wrong in those final 13 seconds, and following Sean McDermott's lead, didn't go into too much detail, but blamed it on poor game management. Here's a portion of what he had to say on both.
Our fans, you know, the Bills Mafia, I'm sick to my stomach that we lost the other night. But I am so appreciative. Our building is so appreciative. It's painful. We didn't do what we needed to do when we had them there for that 13 seconds. Sean and I talk about game management all year long. This is one I can tell you we're going to learn from. And again, there's nothing I can say that can fix it. I wish I could fix it. I've thought about it a million times.
He's certainly not alone in that, right? Michael, you can talk about, you know, kicking away for a touchback and not taking any time off the clock. It's a legit argument. But the larger issue to me was how they played, or in fact didn't play, defense. They ranked number one in the league on that side of the ball in 6 statistical categories this year, but clearly didn't get it done against the Chiefs when it mattered most. I asked him if he thought he needed more upgrades this offseason. He said even if they'd won the game, he'd want more when having to deal with an opponent like Kansas City. But Michael, the stats say one thing. The performance against Kansas City, I thought, said quite another.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Seemed candid, although I think a lot of fans still want a thorough explanation of the miscommunication or what exactly went down there. Let me ask you, Adam, because you also, questioned Beane today about the overtime rule, because there's so much discussion about this, among fans, among analysts, among players and coaches. What are his thoughts on that?
It's an ongoing discussion, and this only adds to it. A big part of the narrative coming out of this game, the fact that Josh Allen and the Bills never had a chance to touch the football in overtime. I asked Beane if he'd spoken to ownership about maybe supporting a proposal for change to the OT rules. He said he hasn't yet, but he does have an idea of what he'd like to see done.
Of course, we would love to, and I think TV audience would have loved to see Josh and our offense get it back. I would definitely love to see it brought back to the table. I'm not saying I have the exact idea, but I think there's some ways to do it. Without getting into detail, I think there's a way you can do it in the regular season that handles that, but let's do something in the postseason when it's all on the line, and that would be where my head is on it. I have not talked to Terry and Kim on it. It's a 17-game season, okay? You can't have these guys playing too many minutes from wear and tear. So maybe there ends up being some more ties in the regular season, but let's make sure we give both offenses a chance when the season's on the line. If you got Pat Mahomes, you're always going to want to make sure he gets the ball, and we feel the same about Josh.
And interesting, Michael, after the Chiefs lost in a similar way to the Patriots back in 2019, Kansas City pushed for change. Player safety, as you heard Beane mention there, wear and tear, an obvious concern with a lot of issues, wanting to expand the playoffs, wanting to extend the regular season as they have now to 17 games, wanting to add an 18th game. Player safety at the top of the discussion, but I can see the merit to do something different in the postseason as opposed to the regular season. An example, the NHL, a shootout during the season and sudden death in the playoffs. It's not an exact comparison, obviously, but the idea of altering playoff overtime could very well be something that gains traction out of this loss for the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, maybe it's some kind of compromise, right? We'll have to see how it plays out. I think there's definitely going to be the discussion, if nothing else.
Yeah,
right?
and I think, the fact, a game like that,
Yeah.
historic in so many ways,
Yeah.
to see it decided like that in overtime, essentially, not entirely, but essentially on the toss of a coin, there needs to be something more.
Yeah, we'll keep following it. Adam Benigni. Adam, thank you very much for that. Hey, by the way, a little bit later on, you're going to hear from the Kansas City fan who started that big fundraising drive with Chiefs Kingdom donating a ton of money to Oshai Children's Hospital right here in Buffalo. So we'll have that story later in the show.